The studio lights of the View glimmered like diamonds overhead, bouncing off the bright set that millions of viewers instantly recognized every morning. Backstage, Jelly Roll adjusted his denim jacket, exhaled deeply, and tried to steady the storm inside his chest. He had been on countless stages in his life, award shows, concerts with tens of thousands of screaming fans, and packed radio interviews, but there was something different about the View. Maybe it was the energy. Maybe it was the unpredictability. Or maybe it was the fact that Joy Behar had a reputation for pressing buttons harder than anyone else on daytime television. The producers had already warned him. She might poke a little, one whispered, half joking. Jelly Roll just smiled politely. Inside, he told himself he could handle anything. But he had no idea what was coming. When he stepped on stage, the audience erupted in warm applause. Jelly Roll waved, his signature grin stretching wide. Joy Behar, seated at the center of the panel, raised an eyebrow the moment he sat down. "Welcome, Jelly Roll," she said, her tone friendly but sharp around the edges. "You've been everywhere lately. Awards, talk shows, even opening up about your past. Busy man, huh?" He chuckled. "Yes ma'am, life's been a blessing." But Joy didn't linger on the pleasantries. "So, let's talk about your past," she said, leaning forward. "You've mentioned your time in jail many times. Some people think you glorify it a bit. You know, turning it into a personality trait. What do you say to that?" The room tightened. Even the audience sensed a shift. Jelly Roll blinked slowly, his smile fading a little. "Well, I never glorify it," he replied. "I talk about it because I want people to know they can come out on the other side." Joy shrugged. "Right, but don't you think it gets a little repetitive? A little dramatic?" There it was, the first spark. Sunny Hostin glanced at Joy nervously. Whoopi raised her eyebrows in a silent warning. Sarah tried to break the tension with a soft laugh. But Joy was locked in, eyes sharp, waiting for a reaction. Jelly Roll's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, with all due respect, it's part of my life. It shaped who I am." Joy wasn't letting go. "But does every interview need the jail story? You're a musician. Shouldn't your music speak for itself?" The audience murmured. A few gasps. A couple uneasy laughs. Jelly Roll leaned back, his big frame stiffening. "When you ask me about where I came from, that's what you're gonna get," he said firmly. "I'm not ashamed of it." Joy folded her arms. "I'm just saying, there are people who worked their whole lives without going to jail. They don't get praised for it." And that's when something snapped. Jelly Roll sat forward, eyes narrowing for the first time. "Praised," he said, his voice low, controlled, but intense. "You think I'm praised for going to jail? You think that's something I wanted in my life?" The studio fell silent. Even the cameras seemed to freeze. Joy blinked, caught off guard by the sudden fire in his voice. But instead of backing down, she smirked. "I'm just pointing out how society can glorify the wrong things." "No," Jelly Roll said sharply. "What society glorifies is people pretending they're perfect. I'm real about where I've been, because someone listening might be in that same dark place right now." His voice grew deeper, more powerful. "And if hearing my story helps him get out of it, then I'll tell it 100 times." Thunderous applause erupted. The audience was fully on his side. Even the other co-hosts seemed relieved that he found his footing. But Joy wasn't finished. She held up her hand. Okay, calm down. No need to get defensive." Jelly Roll's eyes flashed. "I'm not defensive. I'm passionate. There's a difference." Joy rolled her eyes, a dangerous move. "Well, you sound defensive." That did it. Jelly Roll shook his head, voice booming across the studio. "Joy, I came here to talk about music, about hope, about changing my life. But you're trying to turn it into some kind of attack." He pointed toward the crowd, not at her. "These people didn't come here for negativity." The audience cheered again. Joy threw up her hands. All right, you don't have to yell." "Then stop trying to twist my story into something ugly," he fired back. Whoopi finally intervened. "Okay, everybody breathe," she said loudly. "We're not throwing chairs today." Laughter rippled, but Jelly Roll and Joy stayed locked in a silent standoff. Finally, Joy leaned back and muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Touchy. Jelly Roll's eyes closed for a moment. His patience was cracking like thin glass. When he opened them, the calmness was gone. He slammed his palm lightly, but loudly, on the table. Enough, Joy. The audience gasped. Sarah covered her mouth. Sunny whispered, "Oh my God." Joy froze. And the cameras kept rolling. The moment Jelly Roll's hand hit the table, a shockwave went through the studio. Not violent, just enough to send a message that he was done playing polite guest. Joy Behar stared at him, mouth slightly open, as if she couldn't decide whether to fire back or retreat. For a split second, the set of The View felt like a pressure cooker ready to burst. Whoopi leaned forward urgently. Okay, Jelly, Joy, let's take it down a notch." But Jelly Roll wasn't backing off this time. His voice wasn't loud, but it was filled with controlled fury, the kind that makes a room go quiet on instinct. "I came here with respect," he said, looking straight at Joy. "But you've been trying to tear me down since the first question. I'm a human being. I've worked hard to become who I am." Joy scoffed. "Oh please, don't act like I'm some villain. It's a talk show. We ask questions." "No," Jelly Roll said firmly. "You take shots. There's a difference." The audience clapped again, nervous, supportive, unsure. Joy narrowed her eyes at them as if they were traitors for cheering against her. Sunny Hostin stepped in carefully. "Joy, maybe the question came off harsher than you intended." Joy straightened. "I stand by my questions." Jelly Roll exhaled sharply. "Of course you do." For the first time, the anger inside him wasn't defensive, it was protective, like he was standing up for every person who'd ever been shamed for their past. His voice dropped, steady and unshakable. "I'm not here to argue with you," he said. "But I'm also not gonna let you sit there and act like I'm proud of the worst chapter of my life." Joy's lips tightened. "Well, if it bothers you that much, maybe you shouldn't talk about it." That was the final spark. Jelly Roll leaned in, eyes locked onto hers. "I talk about it because I survived it. Because people need to hear that change is possible." "What do you talk about, Joy?" "Besides tearing people down." The crowd erupted. Cheers, gasps, shouts, like they couldn't believe what they'd just heard. Joy's eyes flared with indignation. "Excuse me. You heard me," Jelly Roll said quietly. "All I've seen today is negativity from you. But that's your brand, right? Stir the pot and hope somebody spills." That line hit like a hammer. Sarah tried to breathe through a silent laugh of disbelief. Sunny rubbed her forehead. Whoopi looked into the camera like she was begging for a commercial break. But the cameras were still rolling. Joy pressed her palms on the table, leaning forward. "If you don't like the questions, maybe you shouldn't come on shows like this." Jelly Roll didn't flinch. "Maybe I shouldn't. Not if the goal is to humiliate people." Joy fired back instantly. "Nobody humiliated you. You're the one who started shouting." "I shouted," he said slowly, "because you pushed. And pushed. And then pushed again." Whoopi finally shouted over both of them. "All right. Enough. We're going to break." But Joy ignored her. "You're too sensitive," she snapped at Jelly Roll. "That's the real problem." And that was when Jelly Roll stood up. The audience gasped as he rose from his chair, towering over the desk. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He didn't even touch anything. He simply stood there, tall, calm, and done. "I'm sensitive because I care," he said, voice steady. "I care about people who feel hopeless. I care about telling the truth. I care about my fans, my family, my past, yes, even the ugly parts. And if that makes me too sensitive." He leaned slightly closer. "Then I'll take sensitive over cynical any day." Joy opened her mouth, but nothing came out. For once, she had no quick comeback. Whoopi waved frantically at the producers. "Cut to break. Now." The music rolled. The cameras lightened. The show faded to a commercial. But the drama didn't. As soon as the cameras went off, staff rushed toward the table, trying to calm both sides. Joy folded her arms tightly, cheeks flushed, muttering under her breath. Jelly Roll didn't storm off. He simply shook his head, took a deep breath, and stepped away from the table. One of the producers tried to approach him, but he held up a hand politely. "Not right now," he said. "I need a minute." The audience remained buzzing even during the break, people whispering, others pointing, everyone stunned by what they'd just witnessed. Joy Behar looked shaken, not defeated, but rattled, like she hadn't expected the friendly country star to push back so fiercely. When the show returned from commercial, Jelly Roll resumed his seat, calmer but still firm. Joy was unusually quiet, clearly warned by producers not to escalate again. Whoopi looked into the camera with a sigh. Alright, folks, welcome back. We had a lively discussion before the break. The audience laughed nervously. Jelly Roll spoke before anyone else could. Let me say this, he began, voice softer. I didn't come here to fight. I came here because I believe conversations matter, even the hard ones. He glanced briefly at Joy, not with anger this time, but with finality. I respect this table, but I expect respect back. The audience clapped hard, louder than at any point in the show. Joy Behar forced a small, tight-lipped smile. And Jelly Roll, calm, steady, and unshaken, finished the episode with dignity that won over everyone watching.